And so something that's also important to mention is idols. That's a sin. What are you idolizing? Is it your car? How much money you have in your bank account? Are you idolizing a TV show? Are you idolizing a celebrity? We should not be idolizing things of this world, because really, guys, they mean nothing. They really don't. So let's look at different types of sin. So we talked about the fact that we're going to touch on transgression and iniquity, and in an effort to simplify this, transgression is a sin of the hand, iniquity is a sin of the heart. And let me explain what I mean. The Webster definition of transgression is to violate a command or a law, to go beyond a boundary or a limit. Okay? A transgression means you are intentionally disobeying or willfully trespassing a command. So you go through with the act, okay? If I had to put this in an earthly explanation, let's talk about lust, because this is a very relevant one. Okay? Transgression versus iniquity. Iniquity means you are making the plans in your heart. You are desiring the lust, the fornication, all that in your heart. That's the iniquity. It's a sin of the heart. Transgression means you actually go through with it. So now you guys understand what I said? Transgression is a sin of the hand. I don't just mean you sin only with your hand, but transgression means you go through with the act. Iniquity is when you are plotting it or you have an ill desire in your heart. And King David writes about this. Now, David was a man after God's own heart, you guys. And he fell and he fell hard, and he fell and was enslaved. Pretty much, he was so deep in sin that he was blinded. And so that's what I talk about when I say being enslaved. You are so deep in it, you are literally blinded to what you're doing. You don't even realize that what you're doing is wrong. That's when you are enslaved to it. Okay? So David, when he's talking about his own sin in Psalms, the book of Psalm, in Psalm 32, verse 1, he says, "Blessed is the one whose transgressions are forgiven, whose sins are covered." Again, a transgression is connected to trespassing, which means you are willfully just violating the law. Now, iniquity, again, it's a sin of the heart. So it's when the truth is perverted and your attitude is twisted. Like your mind is already set. You've already premeditated and you're making plans to commit the sin. You're texting this person, "Hey, what time can I come over?" Or, "What time you coming over?" This is real life. It happens every day. People are putting posts up about it. But The iniquity is it's within the heart. You are planning the act of sin. You are willfully putting that desire in your heart, and you're planting that seed, and then you're watering it. Something important to mention: if there is something hidden in your heart from someone in your family, it is very much possible for that to be passed down to you. It can be generational. I will say that one more time a little bit differently so you guys can really get that. If there is an iniquity, for example, in your father or your grandfather that they did not address, it can be passed down to you. Maybe your grandfather was an alcoholic. All his whole life he was an alcoholic. Never addressed the issue. The problem wasn't the alcohol, the problem was in his heart. But he never addressed the issue. And you find yourself struggling with alcoholism. Why is that? There's a deeply rooted issue in the heart that needs to be addressed. The issue is in your heart. Look at what Micah says in chapter 2, verse 1. He says, "Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. Woe to them." And when he's saying woe, he's not saying that in a form of congratulations or hooray. He's saying, oh man, what a terrible, terrible thing that you're doing. Look at this example of iniquity. Again, with King David in Psalm chapter 51, verse 2. This is when King David, he planned to commit adultery with a woman and plotted to kill her husband. Okay? Premeditated sin. He had that desire in his heart and he's like, yeah, I'm going to do this. Iniquity. Okay? But after he repented, David cried out to God, "Wash away all my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin." Psalm 51 verse 2. Wash away all my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. You know something else that is an iniquity, you guys, and I don't think people realize this? Gossiping, cursing, criticism. And when I say criticism, I'm not talking about constructive criticism. I'm talking about ugly judgment. Oh my gosh, did you see what she had on? Or, oh my gosh, this, or oh that. And you know, you're talking about people, you've got nothing good to say about them. Why? I'll tell you why. It's an issue with the heart. If you find yourself with a sailor mouth, cursing a lot, and you want to use these excuses and say, that's just, that's just the way I talk, or that's how my family talks. Issue with the heart. There are plenty of other words to describe things rather than cursing. If every other word that comes out of your mouth is a cuss word, that means you have a passion for cursing. So that means that there is an issue in your heart that you need to address. let's talk a little bit about why we sin. There are several reasons, and I'm sure you all are familiar with the story of Adam and Eve. If you are not, I encourage you to read the book of Genesis. But due to what happened with Adam and Eve, because one person was deceived and lured in by the bait, right? Like I talked about earlier, it'll look so good. It will look so attractive. It'll look like the best thing ever. Man, I'm really missing out on this. And then you do it, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, what did I do? So because of what happened in the Garden of Eden, because of that sin committed with the first people of the world, because of that sin fell upon all of us. So one person corrupted the world, yes, but guess what? One man saved the world, and his name is Jesus. Look at what it says in Romans chapter 5, verse 12. It reads, "Wherefore, as by one man's sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned." Just as I explained, due to what happened, the sin has now fallen down to all generations. Now, something worth noting, you guys, sin can be unintentional, okay? You can do something and not know it's wrong until after the fact. It talks about that in the book of Numbers, and in the book of Numbers in chapter 15, it talks about them offering a sacrifice for a sin that is committed out of ignorance. And that happens to many of us, especially if you are new to your faith, you're new to your walk. You may do something and later on found out, or you may have been doing something for a long time and think, oh, there's nothing wrong with this. And then you come to find out, oh my goodness, I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to do that. That can happen, right? So in that moment, once again, have a conversation with God about it. I've said it a couple of times, and I will continue to mention, it is an issue with the heart. So one of the things you should be mentioning in your prayer, it isn't just about asking for forgiveness of your sin or your sins. It is also important to seek God so that He can change the desires of your heart. King David writes about that. He says, Lord, let the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. What is he saying? He's saying, Lord, help me. Help me to purify the desires of my heart. What am I meditating on? What am I premeditating on? Because if it's something outside of you, I need your help to cleanse that. Again, you guys, the Lord does not want us to do this by ourselves. He wants for us to seek His help. and talk about why do we sin, another question you can ask yourself, what door did you leave open? What does that mean? What door did you leave open? Not a physical door. I'm talking about a door to your heart. In the Bible, you guys, if you didn't know this, we are supposed to guard our hearts. We're supposed to guard our hearts. And God lets us know what we should be guarding our hearts from. So when I say what door did you leave open, I'm talking about spiritually. What door did you leave open? What door is open within your heart that left room for something to sneak in and plant a bad seed? Because that's really what it is. A bad seed has been planted, and if that bad seed is continually watered, it will ruin your garden. What are those bad seeds? Unforgiveness. If you're holding a grudge against someone, you may think that, I just can't forgive them. You are planting a bad seed in your heart. And by holding on to that unforgiveness, you are watering that seed. If you are struggling to forgive somebody, go to God about it, because guess what? The way He forgave and continues to forgive us, we should all be seeking to have forgiveness the way He has forgiveness for us. Anger, that is another doorway. What are you angry about, and why are you holding on to it? Hatred, bitterness, any ill feeling that is lingering in your heart can lead to sin. Just like I said previously, it is like putting a bad seed in your garden. Think of your heart as a garden. And if you're happy and full of joy, the garden is beautiful. The plants are blooming. It looks like the plants are glowing and they're all kind of smiling at you. Now, what happens if you put a bad seed in that garden and it grows? It's going to overtake the garden, and no longer will you have those happy flowers. It's the same thing that happens with your heart. When you hold on to things that you should not be holding on to, when you harbor hatred in your heart, when you harbor bitterness in your heart, when you harbor anger in your heart, when you harbor pain in your heart, that is what plants a bad seed. And not only does it plant a bad seed, if you do not address the issues that are in your heart, that is what drives you to the point of being enslaved to sin. This is what the Lord says about our hearts and about our spirits. Ezekiel 36, beginning at verse 25. It reads, "Then I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you shall be clean. I will cleanse you from all your filthiness and from all your idols." Verse 26, "I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will take the heart of stone out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh." Verse 27, "I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you will keep my judgments and do them." Wow. Let's just pause on that. How do you overcome sin? You address the issues in your heart. The very first point of the matter is that we need a new heart.